Sonic Lost World released at a pretty interesting time for me as a Sonic fan, mainly because at the time I was drifting away from the series. Although I did play the 3DS version near to when it came out, my memories of it are near non-existent. I didn't think the game was bad really, but it wasn't anything outstanding, and for the longest time I had no desire to play the home console version. Well, that and I didn't own a Wii U and didn't get into PC gaming until a good few years later. Point is, I've never touched this iteration of Sonic Lost World, so I'm eager to see what it's all about. The game kicks off quickly, with Sonic and Tails chasing after Eggman for those little animal capsules when they come across the Lost Hex. What is the Lost Hex? Who the fuck knows, it's never actually explained. It's an excuse to make Mario Galaxy style planets to run through. My first impressions were the game feels a bit odd to control. Not buggy or poorly designed by any means, but adjusting my normal muscle memory from the Adventure or Boost style games took some time to get used to. Sonic now has a dedicated run button, which feels weird, but I think I get why. It's an attempt to make his speed feel less unruly, which I remember being a complaint at the time. Skill issue! And while I don't think a run button necessarily suits Sonic, the little figure eight that they make him do in the animation makes my brain happy. I love that figure eight run, we need it in more games. They've mixed up the homing attack too. Pressing the jump button twice performs it the same as usual, but pressing square or X does a stronger kick move or a bounce when nothing's unranged. But the homing attack gets stronger automatically if you leave it locked onto a target, which makes the kick feel a little redundant at times. On another note, Wisps make a return with no explanation whatsoever. My guess would be since Lost World was originally a Wii U exclusive, and the last mainline Sonic game exclusive to a home Nintendo console was Colors on the Wii, they added Wisps to give those players something familiar, but that's complete guesswork on my part. Something new introduced here are the game's villains, the Deadly Six. These honestly really ugly little alien freaks who have one trait and that's just their entire character. If you can't tell, I hate them. They constantly try to big them up as these major threats, but in every single one of their boss fights, you can beat them in about 2 locked-on homing attacks. I feel like it sounds like I've been pretty down on Lost World so far, but one big praise I can give is the sheer amount of level variety. Even if they share similar visuals, no two levels feel the same to go through to me. And on that note, thank God it doesn't feel the need to have all zones fixed to one specific theme. Take the desert zone for example. The first level is what you'd expect, and next it's got you running down honeycombs a la the max speed sections of Sonic 06, but if they were good. And then next you're in a 2D food theme level. It's refreshing in a way. Eggman's been controlling the Deadly Six with this conch up until just now, since Sonic rashly destroys it, causing them to turn and control all of Eggman's machinery. They've got electricity powers. Well, that feels kind of random. They do not look like they've got electricity abilities, and I don't think it's really brought up much again. Sonic has to run off with Tails since he's completely unable to help fight, which was the style at the time. Oh, and the world is being drained of all its energy. Knuckles and Amy are just chilling back home and just accept their fate, like, oh well, like they don't feel like they should get involved at all. Due to this new development, Eggman, Sonic and Tails are forced to work together, but they weirdly act like it's the end of the world, especially Tails, when they've teamed up for the greater good on numerous occasions before. Alright, I have to bring this up. Like, for each cutscene introducing the Deadly Six, they have their own little, like, musical leitmotif. They are kind of what you'd expect. I know why they gave the woman oh yeah, the Deadly Six are called the Zeti, by the way, that's the name of their species. Come on, say it. Why did you give the woman one a saxophone? You know what you're doing. It's like Rouge in Sonic X. Like, anytime she's on screen, 6 people with saxophones go crazy in the background.
That was cool. Pun entirely intended.
You know what, little bro? Same. I think the reason why this game's cutscenes and characters particularly irk me is how much they place emphasis on them. Colors and Generations writing isn't great, but like I explained in those videos, go watch them if you haven't, by the way, please. I think they're pretty good. The gameplay that takes up the vast majority of playtime more than makes up for it, and the cutscenes are quick. Lost Worlds are much more frequent in comparison, and the Deadly Six do not shut up in the levels themselves either. You cannot escape them. Anyway, Eggman makes a very out-of-place, threatening speech in response to some very basic taunting. My man is experiencing some real workplace stress. Alright, now I know I just had to go with the game's writing, but this scene with Sonic and the woman's A got me. I cannot remember their names.
Move it or lose it, Snow Cone!
The last time we met, you ruined my nail art. Now I have to reapply a whole new coat.
Oh my gosh, are you serious? I am so sorry.
Oh, well, in that case...
Oh no, what I meant to say is, I'm so sorry that you have nothing more important to do in life.
Okay, you know what, for fun? Let me try going through their names quickly, just off the top of my head. I know Zavok because, spoiler alert for other games, they keep trying to bring him back. Well, they did for a while. The purple one is Zaz. Editing me, please. Please make an indication that I got it right. The fat one is Zomanom, because I think they wanted to put Nom in his name, like, for eating, because it was 2013 and that was epic internet humor at the time. I know the old one's called Zorks. I think he's the least annoying out of them. What's the woman one called? Zero? I want to say her name's Zero. And I've got no clue what the purple one's called. Z-Pressure. Also, is the implication if Sonic said sorry to her, then she would have just dropped it and left? It sounded like it was to me. After getting beaten again, they decide to turn Sonic into a robot, so they set up a trap. However, Tails shoves Sonic out the way and gets captured, leading to one of the worst lines in the history of the franchise.
I'm supposed to be the fastest, but I was too slow to save my buddy.
Speaking of things I hate, this fucking stealth level, it's painfully boring. This world has to be my least favourite so far. It's got the most annoying levels with the worst Zeti since the fat one. The aforementioned Z-Pression. It features the worst Wisp by far as well. The music note Wisp just feels pointless. I should probably go over the Wisps in game, shouldn't I? There's Laser, Drill, Rocket, and Hover from Colours making their return, and they all act exactly the same. And the new ones, from my favourite to least favourite, are Crimson, which lets you fly briefly, Asteroid, that destroys terrain and lets you hover, Bomb, which is exactly what it sounds like, and lastly, the shitty music Wisp. I'm very pleased to say that Sky Road's levels have proven to be a lot better than the last world so far. But as the game's progressed, Eggman's machine that the Deadly Six have taken over is wiping out more life. One thing I don't get is why the game is implying that Amy never got to declare her love for Sonic. That's like something that she does on the regular, come on now. In the intro cutscene for the final world, Eggman saves Sonic from falling into the lava and fucking dies. Rip to a real one. For Lava Mountain, the last world, I think they're going for a big boss rush / reunion type of deal. The level music builds it up like this big epic confrontation, but it's wasted on these goddamn losers. Then we go from one of the easiest levels in the game to one of the hardest with this rail grinding stage. A massive fucking case of whiplash, especially on your first time playing. It's not a badly designed level in my view, but the sheer tightness of some jumps are a bit mental. Oh, that is a mood. I'm sick of them too, Sonic. The Zeti turned Tails into a robot, but as was indicated in an earlier cutscene, Tails made sure he wasn't under their control, which would have been a much more effective scene if we didn't already know this information, but doing it this way was certainly a choice. Time for the rest of the Deadly Six. Yippee! They're just as pathetic as their earlier fights. Take the final fight with Zavok as an example. It's literally just a new Super Mario Bros.-esque Bowser fight if Bowser was having a bad day and just didn't have his heart in it. Surprise, surprise, Tails is fine and Eggman's still alive, serving as the game's final boss, and thankfully so because this is easily the best boss in the game. I think the design is pretty neat. Sure, it's just a Death Egg robot, but the green energy acting as a cape just really does it for me. It's not a difficult fight per se, it's more so just a matter of pattern recognition, but I found it enjoyable regardless. It feels quite similar to Colors, but it definitely does enough to be its own thing in my view. Tails stops the machine, and Eggman threatens to bring back the Zeddy, which turned out to be a bit of an ominous fourth wall break for things to come. Being real for a second, the only reason anyone remembers these clowns is Sega tried making Zavok a thing for a while, like I mentioned before, but that's for another video. The world's returned to normal and ends the story of Sonic Lost World, but that's not quite all there is to the game itself or what I want to go over in this video, so I'm going to keep going. Something that was news to me, after beating the main game, a hidden world with extra levels opens up to the player. The hidden world is kind of a hodgepodge of even more gimmicky levels. Some work more well than others. The first one only involves beating these box enemies until a timer runs out. The next is a Tails plain one, which was a highlight with a nice remix of his SA2 theme included. The second best level of the world is next, with a pretty tough platforming level that reminds me of some of the levels from Mario Galaxy 2 or some of the secret non-flood levels from Sunshine. Lastly, a level that you get shot platform to platform with, reminiscent of the Sticky Bud Slingshot levels from the original Mario Galaxy. The hidden world levels have a pretty high count for flickies to unlock, something that's been a thing throughout the game to unlock its content, but it's never been an issue to me and most likely won't be for anyone doing a normal playthrough of the main game. So I figured I might as well go back and get the red rings I missed in earlier levels. The music isn't something I've really gone into, it's quite different for a Sonic game, going for a more atmospheric vibe to a degree, for it to suit the level anyway. The scores can vary greatly, with some I actually heard online and didn't even realise were from this game, but some standouts for me include Desert Ruins Act 1, Desert Ruins Act 2, Desert Ruins Act 4, Tropical Coast Act 3 and Lava Mountain Act 2, they're the same theme. Frozen Factory Act 1 and 4. Frozen Factory Act 2. Silent Forest Act 1. Sky Road Act 2. Sky Road Act 4. I can't explain why I like this theme a lot. It has a very penis music vibe to it, and I will not elaborate further. And the final boss theme. While visiting the levels again for the red rings and the missions, I figured I might as well get the missions done to 100% the game. Just touching on them briefly, they ask you pretty simple but sometimes tedious tasks, collecting a large amount of rings, beat a certain amount of enemies, etc. But some, like beating bosses without getting hit, are at least a little bit interesting. But what I was going to say before I got myself sidetracked, everything feels much more fun on another run through, since you'll be much more familiar with both the controls and the level gimmicks that you'll come across, so you can adjust easier. Something that made me think whilst getting all the red rings though, a prominent feature exclusive to Lost World is the parkour mechanic. Jumping on a wall with a decent amount of speed leads you to being able to run and jump along them. This actually suits Sonic as a character really well, and I really like it in concept, but in practice, I find it both poorly tutorialized and next to useless in the main game, only really needing to be engaged with when going for collectibles, and even then, not really that much. Another thing this game has, surprisingly, is DLC. Lost World was originally made for the Wii U and had 2 levels themed around Nintendo IPs. I actually do own a Wii U now with the game, and I have these levels downloaded before the eShop went down. Thanks for that, Nintendo, you bastards. I beat them and they're very fun and novel, so I'll talk about them briefly, but I won't be showing any footage here as I cannot find my capture card at the moment for the life of me. The Zelda level is the best, getting to explore a little Zelda-themed sandbox, rings turned into rupees, getting the Triforce at the end of the level with Sonic and Link cosplay, and Link making cameos on his Loftwing. It's pretty cool. The next is based on Yoshi's Woolly World, where you go through a 2D level that's pretty bang on with the art style, collecting Yoshi eggs along the way. I do prefer the former though, since it's primarily 3D, and I feel like Lost World works way better in its 3D sections than the 2D ones, but it's still not bad. Lastly is a Knights-themed level. On one hand, it is the most boring out of the 3, with it being just a boss rush of all the first Zeddy fights, with some Knights-themed cosmetics, but for a free add-on and dope remixes of some of the Knights music, I can't really complain. Sadly, it is the only one out of the 3 that's available to play on PC, but there are mods that can add them back into the game. You may be asking what the point is of collecting all the red rings and completing the missions, and whilst the latter is purely just for items and achievements, the former does actually give you a reward, namely Super Sonic. Like in previous games, it amps up Sonic's abilities, faster speed, higher jumps, invincibility, and instead of a spin dash, he gets this really cool charge that's really fun to mess around with and just completely break some of the levels. Also, fun fact, I'm pretty sure this is well known, but I had to mention it in the video. In the model for Super Sonic, I guess to make it so its mouth is visible in both sides and 2D sections, he just has 2 mouths on the side of his, like 2 little lines on the side of his mouth, or he's like doing a little frown. You can see it in the 3D ones when you're really close up to the camera, and this was just never fixed, but I'm kind of glad it wasn't though, because it's really funny. He has 2 mouths and must scream. Sonic Lost World leaves me feeling a bit conflicted. On one hand, every character bar Eggman is incredibly infuriating, but the gameplay itself is solid, polished, and definitely has more levels that I enjoyed than ones that I didn't. But the game just didn't leave much of an impression on me. I am glad I finally tried it out, don't get me wrong, but I just don't see myself going back to this game for a long, long time. If you've never played it before and are curious, I'd say give it a shot, but if you've really only got a very slight passing interest, there are definitely better games to spend your time on in the Sonic series, so I'd say give it a minute. Like I say, it's not bad by any means, there are definitely way worse Sonic games out there, but it's just not a standout to me. And that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a like and comment your thoughts on Sonic Lost World, and if you like what I'm putting out, then please subscribe. But again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.